Welcome to the ThePPod.
Right, hello and welcome back to the ThePPod, the partnership podcast from the Somerset Safeguarding Children Partnership. Now, as promised in our last episode, we are bringing you a special update today, which is very much formed on the basis of the recent updates to Working Together to Safeguard Children, which was just updated on the 15th of December of this year. And we were really keen to bring you today just a kind of snapshot of some of those really key points that you need to be aware of. Now, Working Together to Safeguard Children, I'm sure you're aware, is the statutory guidance for all agencies in relation to safeguarding and promoting the welfare of children and young people. And it was only last updated back in 2018, so it's 5 years old now. It underwent some minor updates back in 2020, really in relation to other kind of aspects such as the Domestic Abuse Act, also a bit of an update in terms of information sharing. It also, interestingly enough, brought in an additional definition in terms of what safeguarding is, and that is for the first time ever including mental health in that definition of safeguarding, which really made us think about what our responsibilities are. Now, back in June 23 of this year, the government began a consultation on the most recent update to Working Together to Safeguard Children, which, as I say, has only just been published last week. So we're going to bring to you some of those changes. What's changed, what's taken place, what do you need to know, and what do those changes mean for us here in Somerset? So joining us back at the ThePPod today, we have Jasmine Wark, the Business Manager of the SSCP Business Unit, to come and talk to us about those changes. So Jasmine, welcome along. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me.
No, it's brilliant to have you here. And I know you've been spending a lot of time kind of really pouring through all the details since the update was published last week. So we'll get stuck into those. And to begin with, do you want to give us a bit of a background to why we've had the update to Working Together that's just being published now?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, Working Together to Safeguard Children was published in 2018. That was the last time we had a meaningful update. So in that intervening time, there's been some changes. And in 2022, we had the National Independent Review of Children's Social Care that was led by Josh McAllister. This then resulted in a government consultation on the Stable Homes Built on Love strategy. And that had 6 key missions to reform children's social care. So really, we have this landscape of really looking at the child safeguarding system we have and thinking about what systems we need in place to support early identification of needs and a robust response to child protection concerns. And this update to Working Together is a part of this landscape of wider change. And really, this is set to develop over time, and this will be reflected in more regular updates to Working Together moving forwards.
Brilliant. Yeah, so I understand. So it's obviously been 5 years since we last had the update. I understand it's obviously updated just now in 2023, but the plan is, like you say, to then update it year on year in similar way to we see other pieces of statutory guidance, like keeping children safe in education, for example. And I think it's fair to say that we were initially expecting quite major changes to Working Together to Safeguard Children. I think, would you agree, we haven't seen those major updates, a few significant parts, but in likelihood, we're going to see those over the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you said, we'll be getting those more regular updates coming forward, and it may be that we see some more significant changes in those.
So do you want to talk us through those changes then? I think it's fair to say it's kind of broken down from what I can see into sort of two major parts, main parts really. One is very much about principles of sort of safeguarding arrangements and how we work with families. The other part of it are a few kind of significant changes people need to be aware of. So can you start us off just kind of talking about some of those principles of the changes to Working Together?
Yeah, absolutely. So that first chapter is about having a shared responsibility. So it emphasises that really we get successful outcomes for children when we have strong multi-agency partnership working. So it talks a little bit about working with children, and there's some detail about what children have said they need from agencies who are working with them. And in amongst that, there's the importance of stable relationships with workers, the importance of explaining concerns to children and protecting them from harm. Then there's also some principles around building trusting and cooperative relationships with families. So there's kind of 4 key principles that the guidance advises professionals should follow when working with parents and carers. So the first one is about effective partnership and the importance of building strong, positive and trusting relationships. So really that's about having those respectful relationships, that understanding of the family background, and it could be adapting, a worker adapting their response to meet the diverse needs of families, things like that. So then the second principle is about non-blaming, clear communication that is adapted to the needs of the families you're working with. So that would be about avoiding jargon and kind of that professional language that sometimes we might use, and providing information to families in accessible language that they can understand and checking their understanding too. So the third principle is about empowering parents and carers to participate in decision making. So that kind of thing would be good preparation for meetings with families, helping them to prepare and know what to expect so that they can get the most out of that meeting. It might be signposting them to local support or helping them to understand the concerns as well.
And the fourth principle is about involving parents and carers in the design of processes and services that affect them.
And from what you've talked about, I know some areas of the country that might be quite a different, quite a new way of working to some extent. I think it's fair to say probably within Somerset, these are kind of principles that we've been working along certainly for the last few years or so. I'm just thinking about the introduction of things like the family safeguarding model, motivational interviewing, those kind of ways of working with families rather than sort of doing to families. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say there should be a lot of local resources and practices that should be chiming with these principles. I would include in that the Partnership Effective Support Document and the Family Strengths and Needs Toolkit, which is a tool which is designed to be used with families. The key messages through partnership training as well. And say family group conferences applies these principles as well. So hopefully, as practitioners and managers and anyone who works in Somerset are reading through these principles, they'll be thinking about things they're already doing and also ways that they can apply these further.
You talked about the first couple of chapters. The other one was obviously around the multi-agency safeguarding partnership arrangements, which obviously those all changed back in 2018, bringing in the partnerships from the old Safeguarding Children's boards. Again, are you able to sort of comment on that at all?
So just as a quick reminder, our Somerset Safeguarding Children Partnership is led by 3 agencies, which is Somerset Council, Avon and Somerset Police, and the Somerset Integrated Care Board. So the chapter of multi-agency safeguarding arrangements goes into some more detail about what they call a delegated safeguarding partner. But here in Somerset, we call them our executive. And the representatives on our executive are the executive director for children, families and education at Somerset Council. We also have the chief nursing officer at the Somerset Integrated Care Board, the detective superintendent from the police who is in the Somerset commander role. And then we've also had an education representative join our executive as well. And what the Working Together guidance says is that one of these people must be the chair of our partnership. So in Somerset, we already have that, whereas other areas might have independent chairs currently, and they're needing to make that change to their partnership.
I know one of the things that we were anticipating early on in the changes to Working Together, and it's something that's been debated hotly since 2018 with the last update that Working Together came out, was about the inclusion of education as part of the statutory safeguarding bodies, which obviously wasn't included in 2018. We were initially expecting it to come in the update for this year. It's not in there in terms of having that statutory responsibility, other than sort of really emphasising the need to engage with education services. But like you say, within Somerset, we're trying to think ahead a little bit on that one, aren't we? And we now have somebody within the exec, within the partnership arrangements to represent education.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what Working Together has said is that it wants the voice of education to be strengthened across partnerships. And that's absolutely what we've been looking at doing locally. And
I think the other kind of big principle from what I can see is the importance and really kind of emphasising agencies really properly working together. But also I think what was quite key within the update for this year is not just agencies working together, but appreciating differences. and sort of overcoming those differences and that professional challenge as well, which is really key.
The Working Together guidance says that safeguarding partnerships need a system to resolve disputes and issues between partners. So in Somerset locally, you'll recognise that as our resolving professional differences process. And it's all through the document, it's about the responsibility of every agency to challenge where they need to throughout a child's journey with services. And if anyone's interested in that and would like to find out more, they can have a look at our Resolving Professional Differences protocol on the partnership website.
So we sort of talked about some of the principles, which, as I say, I don't think there'll be a massive change for us in Somerset. I think most of those are already in place and kind of quite well established. In terms of some of the details then, are we able to get into some of that? What have you been able to pick out for us?
Yeah, so I think one change that's really important to note is that this new version of Working Together has much more detail about how all agencies should contribute to multi-agency safeguarding processes for children. So just as an example, for an initial child protection conference, in the 2018 guidance, it says that all involved practitioners must work together to safeguard the child from harm in the future and take timely, effective action according to the plan agreed. However, in the 2023 guidance, we've got much more detail. So we have that comment that I just read out and the additional detail that all agencies involved must also attend and present information to the initial child protection conference and evidence of how the child has experienced abuse or neglect and the impact on their health and development. And that they also must bring their agency perspective, expertise and challenge and contribute to the decisions about that the meeting are making with regard to the child and their plan. So again, it's really returning to that theme of challenge and that it's every agency's responsibility to do so.
Right, because that is a bit of a shift, isn't it? Because I know nationally and locally, we've been certainly looking at making sure there's full attendance at conferences. And I'm thinking particularly for some agencies, it might need be something they've really got to think about. So for education, for example, if there's an initial child protection conference taking place during a holiday period for schools, actually making sure that there's somebody who is able to attend that. Because now, obviously, like I say, it's strengthened within Working Together to make sure that all agencies must have a representation within those conferences.
Yeah, absolutely. And every agency is different and might have different challenges in terms of participating in that process. And that might be something that they have to think about in terms of how they can make sure they can meet their responsibilities as an agency.
So that's something to think about for us. Is there anything else you've been able to pick out?
I think as well, it might be worth commenting on the points that the guidance make about the importance of early help and greater inclusion of the voluntary, community and social enterprise sector. So the guidance says that staff and volunteers working with children in these settings will often play an important role in building relationships, identifying concerns and providing direct support to children. So these staff can often be the first trusted adult to whom a child reports abuse, and therefore they have a crucial role to play in safeguarding children. So this guidance is really looking to strengthen how all agencies work with the voluntary sector. And in Somerset, we're looking to do that too. And so that we've got some exciting plans in the pipeline for 2024. So hopefully people can watch this space.
Brilliant. Yeah, I know it's something that you've been really passionate about. I know we've had lots of conversations about over the last few months or so about how as a partnership we can better engage with the voluntary sector. And so I know you've been doing lots of work on that, which hopefully we'll be able to bring some news on very shortly.
So then one other thing that I wanted to just highlight as a change through the new Working Together guidance is about child in need support, or Section 17 support. So the change that's made is that previously it was outlined that a social worker is the lead practitioner in coordinating a child in need plan. However, the wording has changed a little bit in the Working Together update. And now it's saying that the lead professional must be supervised by a social worker. So
we don't, I guess this is very, very sort of early days with this. I know this has been a point was discussed quite a lot as part of that consultation process about exactly what that means there. But so basically, from what I understand, the principles of that is that obviously a child protection plan, child on a child protection plan, that must still have that direct sort of lead practitioner from the social worker. But for child in need plans, I understand from the consultation, it's more about sort of taking a pragmatic approach where sometimes the social worker may be the best person to take on that lead practitioner role, but also recognising other times, depending on the relationships people have with the child or young person, it could potentially be somebody else now, but it needs to have that oversight, that sort of supervision, is that right, from the social worker?
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see how different areas of the country look to interpret this change and, how it can influence better outcomes for children and families.
Like you say, I think that'll be interesting to see how that pans out over the next 6 to 12 months or so. Is there anything else we need to know about from this last update?
Well, something that you might not be surprised by is that the guidance also talks a little bit about information sharing. So we know that this often comes up in learning reviews as a theme. And there is some guidance in the Working Together document outlining that practitioners need to be as proactive as possible when we're sharing information to help to identify, assess and respond to risks or concerns about a child. It also talks about the Data Protection Act and how it supports the relevant sharing of information in order to keep children safe, but also that practitioners should always aim to be transparent by telling families how they're sharing information wherever possible.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think there was included in an update to the last kind of tweak to Working Together, which is back in 2020 that I mentioned earlier, where there was the myth-busting guide to information sharing, where the government recognised that the GDPR legislation had created some big barriers to information sharing, a lot of anxiety about sharing information. So they brought out that extra section there, the myth-busting guide to information sharing. And like I say, that is included now in the update that we've seen recently. But we are also sort of hotly anticipating the publication of the update to the full information sharing guidance from the government, which we were hoping was going to come out at the same time, but it's not come out just yet as yet. So I think we're expecting early 2024.
Yeah. And once it is published, we'll be looking at that locally in Somerset and having a think about what systems need to change or what training needs to change in order to apply that guidance as best as we can. Absolutely.
Like you say, what that looks like in practice. And as I say, Working Together, like you say, works very much on the principle that consent should not get in the way of good, effective safeguarding practice. But like I say, working in that principle, like we talked about right at the start of this, about working alongside families, working in an open, transparent way with them, and so not sort of going behind people's backs effectively. So, like I say, it's going to be interesting to see how that really kind of shapes up. And I know already there are sort of things set in motion around that one pre the publication of the new information sharing guidance to really start to shape that up in Somerset and see exactly how that's going to affect us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jasmine. Is there anything else we didn't get a chance to cover?
I think we caught the headlines.
Wonderful. That's what we need for today. So, Jasmine, thank you so much for joining us and really sort of spending that time sort of pouring through all the details to bring that to us today. And like I say, we are currently in the process of going through all the policies, procedures, the training as we've got to really sort of bring you those updates as well. So I really appreciate you being able to give us that little snapshot that we've got. And what we'll do is we'll put in the description for this podcast all the links to the updated guidance and also some of the wider guidance that's coming out around that. Like you mentioned there, the National Children's Social Care Review by Josh McAllister, Stable Homes Built on Love. We'll pop all of those links in the description for everybody today. So, Jasmine, thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time to come and join us today. And we look forward to you joining us again soon.
Brilliant. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Jasmine. Take care. So we hope you found this extra bonus episode of the ThePPod useful in understanding some of those kind of headlines from the changes to Working Together to Safeguard Children 2023. Now, as we mentioned, we will be putting links in the descriptions for this episode, so do check those out where it's got more details and some summaries for you. Also remember that, as Jasmine mentioned earlier, we are hotly anticipating the publication of the information sharing guidance from the government, which should be coming out early in 2024. So once that is published, as we said, we are going to be doing lots of work on that locally to see exactly what that looks like in practice. We will also look to bring you a similar episode to today's, an extra bonus episode, really kind of going through what those changes are in relation to information sharing. So once again, my thanks to Jasmine Wark, Business Manager for the SSCP Business Unit, for taking the time to go through all of those updates within working together and bring those to us today. And thank you again, as always, to you for listening. My name is Steve Maccabee. I'm the Multi-Agency Training Manager for the Somerset Safeguarding Children Partnership. And I look forward to you joining us again next time at ThePPod.
Let's work together to help keep children safe.